Most pro controllers are designed to be ideal for all genres of gaming, whether that be racing, role-playing, simulation, adventure, platformers. They're not just focused on one in particular, so they end up doing lots of things really, really well, but in one area or more, there are some things that they don't do so well on, in certain applications of course. But could you imagine if someone designed and made a controller specifically for FPS games with the sole purpose of making you as competitive as you could be? Well, they did, and we have it. I just want to say a huge thanks to MOJHON for sending out their Blitz2 controller for me to test and review. This video is not sponsored. The controller was sent out to me free of charge, but I am not being paid to make this video. So all opinions remain my own. I am free to speak as I feel necessary to give you an honest and unbiased review of the product. So, what do I think? After reviewing some of the best pro controllers that's out there on the market, the word must have got out that I like fast controllers. The Blitz2 advertises a 2000 Hz polling rate and even supports up to 1000 Hz when using the built-in gyroscope for motion controls. If you play any games like Apex Legends, Call of Duty, Halo Infinite, input delay can be the difference between a win and a loss. Every aspect of this controller is tailored to make you perform your best without limits. Featuring 16 mechanical mouse click-like buttons, high-performance textured grip wrapped around the controller where you need it, 4 additional remappable buttons, and high-precision TMR anti-stick drift joysticks. Most manufacturers give you so many different options when it comes to choosing the right controller for your requirements. So you have to spend hours, days, maybe even weeks researching, watching videos just like mine to find out which is the right one to go for. But MOJHON's Blitz2 makes things very simple. Every single product and controller that they offer is tailored for each scenario, each type of gamer. Number one, are you a PC gamer? Yes. Do you mainly play competitive FPS games? Yes. Done. The Blitz2 is the right controller for you. Any company can claim that their product has these features and is the best thing that money can buy. But when we put it to the test, this is where we find out how well it all actually works. Before we jump to that, let's walk through what we get in the box. The unboxing experience is premium feeling, but still made up of easily recyclable materials. So just off the bat, we have Mother Nature's approval. We get a braided USB-C cable, a nice length, not too long, not too short, and it's quite thin and flexible as well. It's actually a really nice cable. They included 2.4 GHz wireless dongle. I'm excited to test that out because this also does support 2000 Hz. So that's going to be quite impressive if that works well. And the star of the show, the controller itself. I was skeptical when I looked at the images of this controller. I was concerned it may look and feel a little bit cheap in the hand, but oh boy, I was wrong. I was so wrong. This thing feels solid and ergonomically fits really well in the hands. Much, much better than I expected. It's actually a really nice weight too. As light as you could expect from a controller packed with all these features and a 1000 mAh battery, but not at all too heavy. And I almost missed this, but in the bottom of the box, we've also got a hot swappable D-pad and also some extra thumbstick caps with different heights, which is absolutely amazing to see because I do like a longer stick on the right for aiming. Taking a closer look, the controller is in a league of its own. Definitely not similar to a PlayStation style controller, but also very different to an Xbox controller. This might take a little while to get used to, but first thoughts are everything is where it should be, and lots of attention to detail has been carefully thought out. The shape, size, and layout of a controller is always going to be a personal preference, but for me, I think it will work just fine with this one. We have offset thumbsticks, and they don't use Xbox style concave or PlayStation style thumbstick caps. They are kind of a hybrid between the two. But what I can say is that these things are super grippy and feel pretty good. I don't feel the need to use any control freaks or thumb grips or anything like that, as just out of the box they are already quite a grippy compound and texture. Every button on the face of the controller is a mechanical switch, and they are super clicky, with a very short travel distance compared to others. Also, they don't require much force to press either, unlike some other controllers I've used. We also have 4 buttons at the bottom. They are for enabling turbo, remapping buttons on the fly, using macros and switching profiles. So you don't always need access to the app to make changes, which is a big win for this controller. See what I did there? Lol. Moving around to the back, we have two more buttons that you'll see quite commonly on most controllers now, as well as the pins for the optional charging dock that is sold separately. Up on the top of the controller is where things start to get a little bit more interesting though, with two extra remappable buttons on the inside of the triggers and bumpers, similar to what we find on the Razor Wolverine. A great placement if you ask me. They are accessible when you need them, but out of the way if you don't, and much better than cluttering up the back of the controller with buttons you'll accidentally press. The triggers, however, are not Hall effect and don't have trigger stops. Instead, these are just mechanical switches with a very short travel, so they are absolutely perfect for FPS games, but you will struggle to play anything like a racing game, as the triggers are just on or off. You can't increase the input gradually like a traditional trigger. Personally, I am not a huge fan of the shape and the size of the triggers themselves. I feel like they may be a little bit too short, but I'm saying this before testing the controller out. You could say that this controller actually has 4 bumpers, rather than 2 bumpers and 2 triggers, but we'll see how well that works in game. Taking a look at the software, it really starts to show the focus of this controller. If you're a bit of a tech nerd and you like to play around with settings and fine-tune things, you are going to love this app. The level of customization really is impressive, definitely compared to the competition. Although, I do have to mention there's definitely some work to be done on the UI of the software, but everything you can think of is in here, once you find it. There are little question icons next to everything, but they don't provide anything helpful. Again, definitely some work to be done with the information and layout, and MOJHON will be watching this review, so hopefully we can see some updates to this in the very near future. But once you do learn what all these options do, the possibilities are endless. Not only can you remap any button to any input of the controller, but you can also remap any button to be a key from your keyboard, which, as a streamer and a content creator, gives me some helpful options, such as using hotkeys on my stream, muting my mic on the fly. You can get very, very creative with this. Not only that, you can mix and match controller inputs with mouse and keyboard inputs. I could probably make a 15-minute video going through every possibility and every feature in this app, but I'm just going to stick to the main ones. Obviously, you can add in your macros, and then you've also got a tab for changing and enabling your report rate, so your 2000 Hertz. You can set this lower if you'd like. You can also change the input from X input to D input, and it's got your calibration for your joysticks and your gyro. Since these are TMRs, you will never get stick drift. And even if your sticks go off center a little bit, you can just recalibrate them and recenter them. I tested the input latency of the controller just to verify the 2000 Hertz, and the controller hits it out of the park, officially becoming the fastest controller that I've ever used. And you can believe it or not, but this isn't even wired. This is actually using the Neuralink wireless dongle that comes with the controller. So to officially take advantage of every feature of this controller, you don't even need to plug a cable in. You can even make changes in the app and configure the controller wirelessly. Jumping into my first couple of gameplay tests, I was instantly reaping the benefits of how well put together this controller is. And I started off by testing it wirelessly. It took me about 30 seconds to completely forget that there wasn't even a cable plugged into this controller. And this was all over wireless. It was clicky, it was responsive, the thumbsticks were so smooth. There was next to no noticeable input delay whatsoever. So those figures on the screen we were seeing just a couple of minutes ago weren't telling any lies. You are getting a faster, better experience over wireless than you would do with most wired controllers. So MOJHON are definitely doing something right. Let's talk about these TMR sticks. Super smooth, super responsive. Now when it comes to the different type of joysticks that controllers come with, you've got generally 3 different types. You've got potentiometers, which we've been using for the last 2 decades, and you've also got Hall effect sticks. Hall effect sticks are now being seen on more and more controllers. But there's a problem with that, and you shouldn't just go out and find the first controller you see that offers Hall effect sticks and just go ahead and buy it, because there is such thing as a bad Hall effect stick, but also there are really good Hall effect analog sticks. You can have a worse experience than just using potentiometers. The biggest problem with potentiometers is obviously they don't last very long because you do get stick drift. Now, there are some bad potentiometers and some really good ones as well, but ultimately they will all get stick drift. Some will last longer than others, but again, they will all face the same day to come. And this is where manufacturers started incorporating TMR sticks. TMR, essentially, are Hall effect sticks. They are the same, pretty much. But there's a couple of key differences. Number one, they're very low power consumption, enabling wireless controllers to have a longer battery life. But the main thing is it's to balance the benefits of potentiometers with Hall effect sticks. So taking a Hall effect stick and giving it more precision, more accuracy. Generally, these also come with higher resolution as well, just like these ones right here. Very, very smooth. The smallest amount of input registers, and that's absolutely what you want in a first-person shooter for that fine aim rate control. A controller you might have used in the past, or one you might even be using now, for those very, very small movements, and I'm talking microscopic movements, you might notice that there's almost no input until you get past a certain point, and it can make it really, really difficult. You do adjust to it, and it's not the biggest issue that controllers face, but the Blitz2 offers one step up from that, and those microscopic movements now do register in the game, just to give you even more control. There are two versions to the Blitz2. There is one that comes with standard analog sticks, and then there's the TMR version. This is what I've got right here, the TMR version. So if you are going to pick one of these up, I will leave links in the description below, which will take you to the right one. In the end, the triggers weren't an issue at all. I did kind of feel like it would have been nice to have them a little bit longer. But again, if you just treat them as 4 bumpers rather than 2 bumpers and 2 triggers, you can find a comfortable place to use them. And again, no issues whatsoever. They were right there where I needed them, when I needed them. You will only appreciate how well built this controller is when you actually get it in your hand. It's one of the most solid feeling controllers I've ever held. Some other controllers can have a bit of a cheaper feel in the hand. Just the texture of the plastics and materials, the way that the pieces fit together, the wiggliness of the buttons. This controller has none of it. And the 8-way D-pad on this controller right here is absolutely one of my favorite D-pads I've ever used. Hands down. Even on some of the best controllers, some of my favorite controllers I've ever used, the D-pads tend to suck. Not a huge issue for FPS games, as long as they register the input when you need them to and don't start throwing double inputs and things like that, then it's not usually an issue. But again, this just goes to show how much attention to detail the Blitz2 has had put into it. There is very little to complain about. Now those buttons on the top of the controller, those extra remappable ones, they're labeled M3 and M4. Those came in really, really handy. However, I felt like they were a little bit trickier to use. When I say trickier, I mean when you had your fingers on the triggers, reaching your finger over far enough to actually press the button sometimes caused accidental clicks of the bumper or the trigger. It was only every now and then, and I'm sure if I spent much more time with a controller, I'd get used to it and I'd adjust the holding position to suit. But again, right out of the box, I did kind of struggle to utilize these as much as I would like to. And talking about the shape of the controller, again, I can't say that this is an Xbox style controller. I can't say it's a PlayStation style either. I think if you're a PlayStation player, so if you've been using a DualShock 4 or a DualSense, I think picking this controller up, you're going to get much more comfortable, much quicker, I think, than an Xbox player would. If you are coming from an Xbox controller, this might take a little bit of getting used to, but I'm sure if you spend a week or two with it at least, you'll find a comfortable spot. And the benefits that this controller offers are absolutely worth adjusting to. Now, one downside to a wireless PC controller is that the majority of them don't come with headphone jacks. To be totally realistic, majority of people probably do use wireless headsets now anyway, so I can't see it being a big problem, but it would be nice to see one included at the bottom. There's clearly space for it. I mean, I don't know while they were designing this controller if there were any issues with putting that in and they kind of had to just leave it out for any particular reason. But again, it would be nice to have, since the controller's wireless, it means if you use a wired headset or wired earbuds like I do, IEMs, it means you don't have to have cables going over to your PC when you're trying to have a wireless experience. And the fact that this controller breaks the barrier between wireless and wired and opens you up to being able to play competitively on a wireless product, I highly recommend getting a wireless audio option if you don't already have one, because that will complete the experience. And just to add, you do have to kind of get used to a slightly different button placement. With the shape of the controller, overall being very different to most likely any other controller that you've used. Buttons are in a slightly different place, especially the start and menu buttons right in the center. I would reach over to those and not be able to feel them, and then I have to look down at the controller to see that I'm not actually anywhere near pressing it and it's in a different place. So it's just very, very small things like this, but again, something you're going to get used to. Being able to remap any button on the fly, enable, disable turbo modes on the fly, switch your profiles, and thank you MOJHON, not making it so that I have to run the app or have the app open to use and utilize the controller. Music to my ears. There's nothing I hate more than needing to have an app open and running to fully utilize the features of a controller or any product. Keyboards, mice, all that kind of thing. Really, the only thing I can say about this controller is you just feel so much more in control. What this controller does is it takes away the limitations that the current controllers put in place, such as high input latency, unresponsive buttons, buggy software. And I mean, I'm not saying that the software is perfect. I've already said the UI definitely wants some work, the software wants some work, but to be honest, it's still early days and there's probably some updates in the background that they're working on for this controller that are going to continue to make this experience even better, especially when it comes to the software. And just before I do forget to mention this, because it's something that can quite easily be missed, but I wanted to make sure that I mentioned it because, again, this just outlines the whole purpose of this controller. And it's to do with the bumpers. The bumpers on this thing are engineering perfection. Have you ever been using one of your bumpers? And depending on where you place your finger, wherever you decide to press it, it changes the amount of pressure you need to put on. Sometimes if you press it in a certain spot, usually on one of the edges of it, it doesn't actually fully press. Well, you can say goodbye to all those issues because MOJHON's revolutionary X-lever design and responsive trigger micro switches, it doesn't matter where you press the bumper, whether it's close to the inside, close to the outside, or anywhere in between. These things are quick, responsive, and easy to press, no matter where. And this is such a clever design, I just wish more controllers had this. Now, one of the key features of this controller is also the gyroscope, and it's advertised as having a 1000 Hz polling rate, so it should be pretty smooth and pretty responsive. So I had to test it out, although I do have to point out I'm not a gyroscope user. I certainly don't play FPS games using a gyroscope, and I don't know anybody that does. So you'll have to excuse my absolute terrible coordination and aim. It's actually laughable, but I was still quite impressed on how it felt overall. Now, I've not really tested gyroscopes on many controllers. I have played on obviously a Nintendo Wii when I was younger and Nintendo Switch in more recent years. I have played games with motion controls, just nothing FPS type. But the best way I can describe this is it kind of feels like you're using a high-end mouse. It is really, really responsive. Again, I'm using it wirelessly. I don't really expect anybody to be using a gyroscope with a cable plugged in. I imagine it would be even harder. And I kind of felt like standing up and having kind of a bit more body movement with this thing. I feel like you have to get a lot more involved. But again, if anybody does use a gyroscope at all for FPS games, let me know in the comments. How do you get on with that? Are there certain techniques that you use? I'll be quite interested to know. But yeah, this kind of felt like a mouse, but still with the added benefit of aim assist in the game. So it still supports aim assist because all the gyro is doing is it's just mimicking the right stick, or you can choose it to mimic any stick. So I could use the gyro for moving and still use the analog stick for aiming if I wanted to. But yeah, again, latency is not distinguishable whatsoever. And this thing was buttery smooth as well. To say that my aim is just terrible and my coordination is terrible, I don't think I did that bad. And I think that comes down to the controller just doing its job so well. I would just like to point out as well that I have done all my testing with this controller wirelessly since it performs so good and you get pretty much the same experience over wireless. And the battery life on this thing has been going for well over 10 solid hours over the space of about a week. And I have not had to charge this thing once. And that's probably mainly thanks to the TMR sticks, which are just really efficient on power draw, and a massive 1000 milliamp hour battery, which is definitely bigger than what you expect to find in most other controllers. And there we have it. What a controller. Everything that it says it does. And it does it right. It does it well. Even though I say that the software needs a little bit of work, I'm talking about the layout and the UI. I had no issues using any of the features. Everything worked perfectly fine. If you are serious enough about competitive FPS games that you are willing to spend a few weeks using a slightly different style controller so that you perform at your best, this is the one. If you've watched any of my previous controller reviews, you know how harsh I am. This controller is one of the more expensive ones, and I'm also taking into account value for money. And it's safe to say that spending $50 more on this than another controller with half the features, even one of my favorite controllers, it's well worth the extra. The analog sticks are perfect. You can't complain at all. The only thing that I can complain about this controller, and I am being really picky here, is a personal preference thing, and that is the shape and the style. It would be nice if it resembled something I was more used to, like an Xbox style controller. So maybe bringing out the sides of the controller like down here at more of an angle. But again, I'm being really picky, and that is just my personal preference. Again, if I just used this controller now for the next few weeks and get accustomed to it, then it will be everything that I want in a controller. Again, if you want to get this exact controller, links will be in the description so you can pick up your very own and experience for yourself the extreme low latency, the absolute precision, ultra short travel distance on every button, and endless customizability in the software. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you want to stay up to date on how I'm getting along with the controller as time goes on, I will be giving an update on the channel, how it's holding up in maybe a month or two, see how the durability is going. I will make you aware if I run into any issues and try and provide some support. If you need any help with the controller, if you've recently just got one, let me know. But for now, go kick some ass and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.